Ever since my dad got married, about 13 years ago, me and my stepmom got on bad footing. And so she's basically made it clear with some boundaries that she doesn't want my dad involved in my life.
In this episode, the client opens up about her deteriorating relationship with her dad and how it reached that point. With the therapist's expertise, the root cause of the family's hatred is uncovered.
It's hurtful. He's my father. I'm his only daughter. I feel like he should put me as a priority. I feel like if he dies, she's already made it clear that I can't go over to their home. They live in a secured place, so I'm not on the security list to even get into the area where my dad lives. So long story short is that I feel like if he were to pass away, I'm not going to be able to go to his funeral. She probably wouldn't even contact me to let me know that he passed away. And so I'm essentially grieving my dad while he's still living.
It's an emotional journey for the client, as the father who should love her the most has turned his back on her.
Ever since my dad got married, about 13 years ago, me and my stepmom got on bad footing. And so she's basically made it clear with some boundaries that she doesn't want my dad involved in my life. And so that's been really difficult to manage because, at one point he gave me an ultimatum to have her in my life or not have him at all. But then, as ridiculous as that sounded, he realized that, he needed to try. So I basically settled for like 5 minutes of his time, 10 minutes of his time here and there, short phone calls. And I recently set a boundary that was like, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore, so I stopped talking to him just because, it's hurtful. He's my father. I'm his only daughter. I feel like he should put me as a priority. Not only that, but my kids as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Miss Stacy, thank you so much for agreeing to have our next session recorded. I know it's very, very challenging. As a little recap of what I'm hearing from you, so essentially here we've been talking about the struggles that you've had with your dad, right? And essentially here, he remarried, and now there's some conflict with your stepmom, right? And essentially there's been some conflict. There's been some tension. She doesn't want your dad involved in your life, and you were kind of trying, right? You were kind of trying to, because it's your dad, right? You want a relationship, and so that eventually you reached a breaking point, right? The straw that broke the camel's back, right? Yes. And so we worked on you setting boundaries with your dad. So now, hey, look, if he'll reach out, etc. And you realized you came to the realization that, a father and daughter's relationship shouldn't, this is not typically how the father and daughter relationship should go.
Right, because I feel like I'm having to compete with another woman for my dad's attention, and I'm his daughter. I shouldn't have to feel like that, like another woman is competing with me.
So you said another woman's competing with you here. What would you want to focus this session on?
I'm struggling with some guilt as far as blocking him and not talking to him, but I think what I would say to her, as hard as that would be, I think that I had never really processed what I would say to her if given the chance.
And what would you say to her if she was here right now?
I just, I don't think it's fair that she has a relationship with her kids and, he's involved with her kids, and, she makes it so clear in the sand that he can't be a part of my life. Like, who does she think she is? Does she think she's God or something playing, you know what I mean? I don't know. And so, I don't know, I've lost all respect for her. And honestly, lately, the reason why I set boundaries with my dad to not talk to him anymore is because I feel like if he dies, she's already made it clear that I can't go over to their home. They live in a secured place, so I'm not on the security list to even get into the area where my dad lives. So long story short is that I feel like if he were to pass away, I'm not going to be able to go to his funeral. She probably wouldn't even contact me to let me know that he passed away. And so I'm essentially grieving my dad while he's still living.
Oh my goodness. First, thank you for sharing this. I mean, it's really tough, right? It's really tough almost losing the parent while the parent is still alive, right? You're essentially here. It's almost like you're going through the stages of grief, the stages of the mourning process, but for a living person. And do you know, and essentially here it's kind of, I guess we can take this a couple ways here. My thought process is, how did it get like that between you and her?
It all started over a toddler bed. Okay. Her son, I guess, was older. This toddler bed was cheap plastic. It had been in the family for like 18 plus years. She had given it to me because I was pregnant with my second child. And long story short is we got in an argument one day and she was belligerent, calling me curse words and everything like that, to the point where my husband got involved and told her to stop communicating with me, and she was expressing that she wanted the toddler bed back. Well, it was like 9:00 at night, and she ended up telling me, my dad said, we're not on our way, we're not coming to get it. I was trying to arrange a safe place where they could meet up to get the toddler bed, you know what I mean? But anyways, long story short, she drove to my place in her Lincoln Navigator, my dad in the passenger seat, and we got into a physical altercation. She said she was going to kill me with a crowbar, and she assaulted me and my ex-husband to the point where we pressed charges. She lost her nursing license for a year, and it just wasn't good. So my dad was threatening to divorce her, but needless to say, he stayed married to her. And ever since then, there's been this hostility between us.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like you've actually suffered a lot of trauma. I mean, this lady is just making your life a living hell, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a Lifetime movie, right? She's come in, threatening you over a toddler bed, and over a toddler bed. Although it's very serious, the relationship between you and her, I'm more so wondering, how did the relationship between you and your father deteriorate so much? Because typically fathers are very protective of their daughters. Typically the father wants to make sure that the daughter has the best life possible. Typically the father, especially with their grandkids, when you have the grandkids, it's kind of like your second go around at parenting, where you're gonna, if you were hard on the kids, you may be a little bit soft on the grandkids, because now you've grown a little bit old and now you have a little bit some wisdom to you, and to realize, hey, look, things aren't as bad as it is. So what do you think has caused your father to choose essentially his relationship with the woman versus the relationship with you?
Well, two things. These are his only grandkids. So that's even more hurtful, that he is not involved in his only grandkid's life. And I think that it stems from, I think you made a good point, Frank, but I think it stems from my parents' divorce. So my mom and dad getting a divorce, and I don't have a relationship. It's like when that happened, my parents' relationship with me fell apart. It's like my mom blamed me for the divorce, even though it was her fault. For cheating on my dad. Like, how am I at fault? Okay. But then I stopped talking to my mom, and then my dad, kind of just washed his hands of both of us, pretty much, is how I feel. And I don't know.
So the commonality here is, the commonality that I'm seeing here is, or the common theme is, there's an argument that occurs or something, there's a rift, and then all of a sudden things are taken out on Stacy, right? And Stacy gets the short end of the stick, right? Stacy, how have you internalized it? How have you been able to navigate through those things where it's kind of like, I say the it's kind of like in when you have relationships sometimes, you know, the people that, you know, are supposed to love you the most, they actually end up hating you. How have you been able to navigate that? Like what have been using, or you know, like how has that been like for you, navigating the fact that your relationship with your mom is, you know, she blames you, and now your dad has chosen you? Tell me about that.
You know, it's been really hard, and, you know, setting boundaries, you know, especially going from not talking to my mom. That took like a whole year to establish some good boundaries of not even communicating with her anymore. And then recently my dad, you know, coming to the conclusion that I'm no longer going to speak to him. You know, it's one of those things that I had to internally be ready for. And it's just, I guess I've allowed it for so long that I just, you know, naturally just came to me that I'm not going to allow it anymore, you know, because it is such a hurtful thing. But I guess, you know, with my father, it's been the idea that he's getting up in age. He just celebrated a birthday. And if something happens to him, the people around him are passing. You know, my dad just went to a funeral. It made me think about his own funeral.
So what I'm hearing is, as you getting older, you're starting to reflect on life. You're starting to reflect now and saying, hey, look, there is this conflict here. We've had conflict, but my dad's not getting younger anymore. Right? I want to kind of, what I'm seeing is you kind of want to mend that relationship. You want to reach out, you know, extend an olive branch, right, to your dad, and to say, hey, look, if anything were to happen to you, it would shatter my life. My whole world would be turned upside down. I would miss you greatly, right? But right now you have somebody that's kind of getting into the way of that, right?
And I don't want to force all the blame on her, because I used to, Frank, but now I've seen that it's my dad. My dad is accountable for this. You know, on Facebook, I mentioned they live in a prestigious neighborhood. Her kids are present, and there's a lot of social gatherings going on. I mean, I'm talking, when they go to dinner, there's usually 25 people. My dad's at the center. You know, they take a lot of pictures, they post it on social media. And so for him to use the excuse that he's busy, too busy to see me, you know, too busy to see his grandkids, it's not enough for me anymore, you know? And her ultimate betrayal to me would be, you know, not telling me that my father passed, or not allowing me to his funeral. And so I want to be in the driver's seat. I want to be in the one controlling, saying, no, I'm not going to allow that. You know, let me process it on my own time and heal from the relationship of where it stands now, because I don't feel like I'm gaining anything from the relationship that I have now.
You make a good point here. You've actually come to a realization that it's your dad's decisions, right? Your dad's decisions of not including you in his life. And he's responsible for the decisions that he's making. But now those decisions are having, you know, for a lack of better word, consequences or negative results in your life and your grandkids' life. And it's very, very unfair to you, right? That, hey, he's involved in her side, but when it comes to his own flesh and blood, when it comes to his only grandkids, he doesn't want anything to do with them. He doesn't have time for his own family, and just coming to grips with that. What what has that been like, just processing that?
Well, it took time. It took a good 10 years to process that. I mean, it didn't come overnight. The blame, the anger, the stages of grief that you go through, my anger was towards my stepmom, but and I almost wince even saying the word stepmom, because she would say to me, I don't want to be a mother figure to you. So, you know what I mean? I don't even like calling her that. Ugh. And, I just, when I started thinking about he's responsible for his own actions, this is him, I'm seeing the pictures online. He's capable of having social relationships. It made it easier for me to set that boundary.
Man. So you've now set that boundary again, and in the little time that we have here, how can I best help you with this? You mentioned earlier that you wanted to focus on what again?
I guess working through what I would say to her, but ultimately I think therapy can just help with acknowledging that you could be in the right by setting boundaries, right? That there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing as far as, setting the boundary of no communication, because you always hear, the Bible says to honor your parents. And here I am, I don't have a relationship with either of them. So it, sometimes I feel like biblically I'm wrong, I struggle with that. And, just to hear that it's okay to make these decisions for myself.
Yeah. Well, it is okay to make these decisions for yourself. You're navigating a lot, Stacey. I think that you are, for considering all the challenges that you've been through, you're very resilient, right? You are very resilient, and you're been able to overcome a lot of struggles, a lot of challenges in your life, which not a lot of people, I don't think you realize how strong you've been. Right?
Yes, thank you.
And that strength, and I think that I would say now the hardest part is giving yourself permission to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Giving yourself permission to say, hey, or just at least recognizing the fact that, I've been through so much. I am going through a lot, but I am able to make wise and intelligent decisions.
Yes.
Right? Go ahead.
And that it's okay to protect myself now, because I've let so many hurtful things happen to me, so many hurtful things being done or said, that I feel like I'm empowered now. I've reached a level of success in my own life and resiliency, like you said. So I feel like now it's time. I'm okay. I don't need, unfortunately, my father support. I don't need my mother's support. I don't need a stepmom, and I look at it like they would be lucky to have me in their life or to be a part of my life. It's, and they're missing out.
I think they are missing out. I would say this. I think you're absolutely right. They are missing out on all the goodness and your love and all the love that you're willing to share with them, and just what makes Stacey unique, right? And what made you so strong, what made you so vibrant, and what makes you this. But I would say one of the things I would strongly encourage is everybody needs a support circle. Mm-hmm. Right. And right now it's going to be very, very, very hard. Right. You're going through, because the dark days are going to be dark. Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes it is good to be alone, but sometimes it's also good to have that support group, or that support, or your tribe, to lift you up when you've just reached the end of the road. Like, do you have do you have that support circle, those folks that can uplift you and encourage you?
Yes, I do. So luckily I'm married, have a wonderful spouse, and he uplifts me. My children reassure me that they know who grandpa is, but they also respect the boundary that I've set because they've seen the distance there.
Mm-hmm. So you've actually modeled for them appropriate behavior in the sense of, hey, when somebody who's supposed to love you is not reciprocating that love, how to deal with that.
Yes. And Frank, today is, I think, National Grandparents Day. So my daughter at school is having a grandparent breakfast. So I had to tell her, don't be sad, when you go to school this morning, you're going to see grandparents there. She knows that she has family outside of that, that love and support her. But I know that's got to be challenging for my daughter to go to school and see everybody else's grandparents, knowing my dad lives in town, my mom lives in town, and they really have not made an effort to even really get to know her as she's grown up.
What other impacts do you think not having the relationship with your parents is impacting your current family?
I just think, my daughter is the only daughter. I have 2 sons, and my mom, before we even stopped talking, has never showed an interest in getting to know my daughter from the time she was a baby. And we lived 30 minutes away. So I can't imagine wrapping my head around that. Like, why would you not want to know your grandchild? You know what I mean? Your only grandchild, because she doesn't have a relationship with my brother, so why would you not? Anyways. And then for my father, he just seems aloof and doesn't care. It doesn't seem to faze him whether he has a relationship or not.
So what are the things, and I think going back to what when your daughter and it being National Grandparents Day, and for her not having her grandparents around, and what you said to her, I think that's really, really important. I would also say that just continuing to show your kids the love that you wish that you would have had. Right?
Yeah.
Showing them how to bounce back from adversity, right? I think that you've been, I think just your story, right? Just your story, and saying, hey, look, yes, your grandparents are supposed to love you. You're supposed to have people that are supposed to be there, but sometimes the people that are supposed to be there, those are the ones that can let us down the most. But you see that it's okay. We can continue to live a healthy life, continue to just have each other, right? Any other insights on that?
No, I think I've said it all. It's one thing to process it on your own, but then when you see it in the eyes of your children, the hurt, it makes it easier to distance yourself.
Yeah. And so I know we're wrapping up on the time here, but I would say definitely on the next session, I would say want to learn more about the specific things in your own family, right? And how you are using this adversity to teach your kids how to deal with adversity. Right? Because a lot of times, we have a fairy tale of what a family is supposed to be, right? But in reality, it's very, very messy.
Yes.
And I think, and again, I just think that I just want to applaud you, for your strength and your courage, because this is very difficult. Like you've had to deal with a lot.
Yes, thank you.
And you've shown strength beyond measure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that I don't think you give yourself enough credit. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think you know how strong you are, how brave you are, how wonderful you are, how much of a mother that them seeing what you're going through and then seeing how this isn't breaking you but is making you stronger.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, I don't feel it like that, because I live with the guilt sometimes, but it's nice to know that you see that, in our conversation.
The guilt's always going to be there. Right. I think the guilt's always going to be there, but sometimes we have to talk back to that guilt and say, what am I really guilty about?
Mm-hmm.
Loving somebody that, loving the parent, trying to reach out and loving the parent. Right. And so how do we tune out? Sometimes we have to tune out those negative voices that we hear. And the best way to tune out those negative voices is to continue to encourage yourself with what is the reality of it, right? And what is the thing is, hey, look, I've tried to love someone, but now I'm focusing on myself.
Yes.
Right?
I'm focusing on my family and their well-being and them not coming in and out. It's hurtful to come in and out.
It is. So we'll continue this next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.